Of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
We see a gender divide within the state.
Politics Now. Who is leading the race to take office in 2022? Our latest polling reveals the top candidates and leading issues on voters' minds. Plus,
and we got to look for those things that we should no longer be spending money on and cut them from the budget.
Republican congressional candidate Mark Robertson. We have an extensive interview on the economy, abortion, immigration, and more.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. We start with our latest 8 News Now Emerson College The Hill exclusive poll. It shows razor-thin margins in Nevada's biggest races. The polling also shows the economy is still king. With the general election a few months away, the campaigns are gearing up for this final push for votes. But the big races in Nevada are only getting closer.
It's a one-point race.
Spencer Kimball is director at Emerson College Polling. He's as surprised as you may be with results of our new glimpse at November's biggest races.
And we're seeing a high number of undecideds and people voting for none of the above.
8 News Now focused on two of the campaigns getting the most attention and the most money, Senate and governor. First in the race for Senate, our poll shows a statistical dead heat. Republican challenger Adam Laxalt leads with just under 42%. Incumbent Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto now trails with just over 41%. For the senator, that's a 3% drop from our last poll in July. Undecided voters are up from 9 to 11%. However, the poll also shows this unusual statistic. We asked which candidate do you think will win, not who do you want to win. Senator Cortez Masto holds a 54 to 46% lead.
As opposed to building up their candidacy, they're kind of taking down the other candidacy, and that's what's keeping those numbers. And it's not moving voters from one candidate to the other, it's moving them more into that undecided group.
The race for governor remains tight. Governor Steve Sisolak leads by just 0.2% with a 3-point drop from July. Republican challenger Joe Lombardo saw only a small decrease. Both are now around 40%. However, 52% of those polled still think Governor Sisolak will win re-election.
We think it's important not just to hear how that person's voting, but what their circle of friends are thinking.
The election is less than 56 days away from now. So let's zoom in on the Senate race a little bit here. Our polling shows a bit of a racial divide for the two candidates. Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, as you see here, wins with black voters by about 27 points. She was also winning Latino voters by 19 points. That's actually a bit closer than she would probably like. Republican challenger Adam Laxalt winning with white voters by 9 points in Nevada. We also asked a generic congressional ballot question. Do you plan to vote for a Republican or a Democrat? Republicans held a 3-point lead in our polling. That indicates the mood in the country is still in the GOP's favor right now. And we looked at the issues. What are signs? What are the concerns, rather, that Nevada voters are concerned about? What are the issues? Well, they're changing. First, let's get this out of the way.
We do have the top issue. That's the economy.
Spencer Kimball is executive director of Emerson College Polling. It comes as no surprise to him. The economy matters most to Nevadans. Nearly 42% of those we polled are voting based on the economy. That's around 9% higher than our poll in July. Abortion comes in second, an issue Kimball says is driving the Democratic vote.
On the Democratic side, it's abortion access. On the Republican side, we see the search of Mar-a-Lago as a motivator.
Another big issue, our decreasing water supply. Nearly 90% call it either very or somewhat serious. However, there is another split on education issues. 39% support using public money for vouchers for private schools. 33% are against, while 18% are undecided. And polls show 60% of Nevadans are against President Biden's new student loan forgiveness plan.
The male vote is breaking for Republicans, the female vote is breaking for the Democrats, and we'll see if either side is able to coalesce the other group over in the next 7-8 weeks.
You can see more on our exclusive poll, including we dig into even more issues and look ahead to the potential 2024 presidential race. That's at 8newsnow.com. Now, we've been trying to host debates here at Politics Now and on Channel 8. On October 8th, we're going to air a Congressional District 4 debate between Democrat Stephen Horsford, the incumbent, and Republican challenger Sam Peters. However, candidates for District 3, they've both declined. In District 1, Republican challenger Mark Robertson did agree to a debate. Democratic incumbent Congresswoman Dina Titus did not. Now, we want to reward people who are willing to answer our questions for you, the voter. So much of this show will be a sit-down interview that I did with Robertson this week. Let's get right into things right here. The number one issue for voters right now, you've probably heard it yourself, it's the economy. Food prices are up, inflation has been rising. What's the first thing that you would do if you're elected into Congress to try and improve our economy and improve the situation?
Yeah, so to fix inflation, you got to know what led to inflation. And what led to inflation was excessive government spending. And then we shut down the supply chain. And we were paying people not to go to work. So to reverse to reverse inflation, you got to reverse those policies. You've got to stop printing, borrowing, and spending money we don't have. You've got to stop the wasteful government spending, and then you've got to give people incentives to go back to work. Stop paying people not to go to work, and then do all that you can to open up that supply chain so that the supply of goods are happening. We've
seen interest rates go up, which is an effort to try and slow the economy down and sort of level the situation a little bit here. There has been spending in government for as long as government's been around, and the previous presidential administration spent a lot of money as well. What is it specifically about the Biden administration's spending that concerns you the most?
Well, if you look at what was supposed to be COVID relief funds. COVID relief funds went to bail out cities and states. Cities and states are so flush with money. In fact, much of that bailout money came to cities and states that already were flush with money. They didn't need the money. And then a lot of the so-called COVID relief money went to people who never lost their job. You know, government workers, federal government workers, never missed a paycheck, yet they got stimulus money. So that's this excessive money that went out to people and to governments and spent by governments in wasteful ways.
Now, obviously, that money has been sort of spoken for at this point. It's been spent. Let's try and think of moving forward. You're elected to Congress. You take over this seat here. In the future, down the line, how do you, as you're saying, bring that back?
Yeah, so we've got to stop this broken budget process where they wait till the last minute, they haven't passed the budget, so they just lump everything together into something called a continuing resolution or an omnibus bill, where it's all one big ball of budget that nobody's really taken a look at and spent a detailed look at what's inside that budget. We got to get back to regular order where the Congress committees are looking at every line on the budget and saying, is this a program we still need? Is this what we should still be spending money on? Is this one of our priorities? And we got to look for those things that we should no longer be spending money on and cut them from the budget.
Let's switch gears and talk about another major issue in the country right now, abortion. It's been a major issue for a long, long time. There's a proposal in Congress right now, a 15-week abortion ban. Is that something you're in favor of?
No, I am not in favor of any federal legislation on abortion. The decision to overturn Roe said that there is nothing in the Constitution about abortion. And when the Constitution is silent on a topic, then that means that the power rests with the states and with we the people. And that's where it should be resolved. And that's where it has been resolved in Nevada. In Nevada, abortion is a settled issue. It is law. And I am opposed to the federal government taking power from we the people and bringing it up to the federal government.
Which brings up the recent proposal by Senator Lindsey Graham, a federal abortion ban. He himself admits, I don't think he expects it to pass. Is that obviously something you're not in favor of? That
I would not be in favor of the federal government taking power from the people.
Not a political point of view, but on a human level, what is your stance on abortion?
Oh, I'm unapologetically pro-life. I think we ought to protect the life of unborn children. I'm with 71% of the Americans who say that we ought to have limits on abortion. My opponent has taken the extreme position that there should not be any limits, that the abortion should be available up to the hour before a baby is born, and that the government should pay for that. She's not listening to the will of the people. 71% of the people say there should be limits on abortion. The limits I would place, first, I think a woman should have the choice whether or not she engages in activities that lead to pregnancy. So when she doesn't, like in the case of rape or incest, those should be exceptions. I would also support exceptions in case of the life or health of the mothers at risk.
Just to correct myself regarding the candidates not willing to take part in debates in Congressional District 3, the incumbent Democrat Susie Lee did agree to a debate, but her opponent, April Becker, did not. Next on Politics Now, solving the crisis at the border. Up next, we'll speak with Mark Robertson again about what he would change down there, the governors who are flying immigrants to places like Martha's Vineyard, and legal
Let's go places.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Tonight we are interviewing Republican Congressional District 1 candidate Mark Robertson. Here I ask him about immigration policies at the border. Let's talk about the border. You've said in a previous interview you've done with us that the U.S. needs to close the border, the southern border with Mexico. Recently, Republican governors along the southern border have been sending some people who have crossed to Washington, D.C., New York City, Martha's Vineyard. Do you support that sort of an event?
First, I want to clarify, I didn't say we should close the border. We have a very busy border between us and Mexico. Lots of commercial activity going before. I said we should secure the border. We should stop the illegal flow of guns, gangs, and drugs coming across our border. But your question is more specific on the Governor Abbott or the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, sending some of these people who have crossed our border illegally into other sanctuary cities. I think it's a clever idea. I think we are struggling to get our national leaders, to get the vice president, the president, to come down and see what's going on our border. And so delivering those people who have crossed illegally into Washington, D.C. or New York City or any other sanctuary cities helps those leaders who need to see what the problem is and experience it.
Aside from this effort, this endeavor to send some of these people who have been taken from the border or crossed the border illegally to other states to kind of sort of show them what's going on down there, what else, if you're elected to Congress, would you do to change the circumstances on the southern border right now?
Yeah, so I would finish the wall. I would secure the border by finishing the wall, and where a wall's not practical, using electronic monitoring, giving Border Patrol the resources they need to enforce our laws. I would reinstate. Now, obviously, Congress can't do all of this. The president has to to cooperate, I would reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy, and I would end the policy of catch and release, where people who cross our border illegally have no consequence for doing so. So I would, and then I would enforce our border laws. Once you've done that, then we need to talk about fixing our broken immigration system.
The mechanism of immigration and legal immigration, what do you believe should be done?
Yeah, so our system's broken now. By the way, I'm pro-immigration. I would not be sitting in this chair if my great-great-grandparents, the great-great-grandparents had not immigrated to this country. And that goes for most Americans. So I believe most Americans favor immigration. We need it as a country. If you just look at our Social Security system, it relies on current workers funding the Social Security of retirees. We need more workers. And so but we ought to decide who comes into our country. It shouldn't just be hordes who break our laws and come in here. We ought to decide, but we ought to make it easier for those who have the skills and the talents to come into our country legally.
How many legal immigrants should be allowed into the country each year?
I don't know an exact number, but I would imagine it's a large number. Again, we have a large number of retirees who depend on current workers supporting them, and as I talk to business owners throughout southern Nevada, they're concerned about inflation, but really their biggest concern is they don't have enough people to hire. And there are people around the world with skills that we need that are willing to come to our country.
So if it's legal, you don't think there should be a cap necessarily?
Well, there probably needs to be some kind of cap. There needs to be some, I don't know what that number would be, because I don't know the total demand of labor we have. I mean, right now we've got, what, 33 million unfilled positions that are going without workers. So maybe that's a starting point. You look at how many unfilled positions we have.
Next in our interview with Mark Robertson, congressional candidate, we talk about education, if it's time to reconsider using Yucca Mountain for nuclear waste, and debates. Plus more support for an effort to break up Clark County School District. We'll tell you who's on board now.
Before you buy anything, ever.
You're watching Politics Now.
Tonight we're speaking with Republican Congressional District 1 candidate Mark Robertson. We spoke about education, Yucca Mountain, and debates. Would you favor passing a national school choice bill?
No. Again, I don't think the federal government should have any role in education. If you look in the Constitution, it doesn't mention education at all as a role for the federal government. I would abolish the U.S. Department of Education and then take the $86 billion a year that they spend and grant it back to the states in the form of vouchers that parents could use to decide which education option is best for their child.
You don't find the Department of Education is a valuable federal resource?
I do not.
Okay. The states can do it better?
I believe so. I believe that's where it belongs. I believe that's what the Constitution says.
Let's talk about something you're familiar with, military service, of course, and recently there's been a lot of money that has gone to Ukraine recently from the United States and from other allies. Do you think Congress needs to authorize any future wars or invasions?
Absolutely, I do. I think Congress has abdicated their role. They have given it to the executive branch, and that's not in accordance with our Constitution. Congress needs to take back that role. Congress speaks for we, the people, and the people ought to have a voice in saying whether or not we send our young men and young women off to foreign lands to fight and die.
So how would Congress, if you're elected, get that power back from the executive branch?
Yeah, so we need to revoke the authority we've given to the executive branch. So through legislative action, revoke the authority we've given to the legislative branch, and then not fund wars that the executive branch, that the president wants to put us in. We control the purse. Congress controls the purse. Only fund those wars or engagements that we, the people, the representative, have authorized.
One issue that's very important to us here in Nevada, of course, is Yucca Mountain. This has been volleyed back and forth for a long, long time. If you're elected to Congress, what would your stance be if there is legislation proposed or efforts made to try and use Yucca Mountain for nuclear waste again?
Yeah, so I would work closely with the governor and the state Senate and the state assembly, because they should have a voice in this. The leaders of our state should have a voice in this. But I am in favor of taking a look at, again, seeing if technology has changed, if safety measures have improved, and see what the economic benefit to Nevada would be to either building nuclear facilities here so that it doesn't have to be transported, or opening it up for waste.
So you're open to the idea of nuclear waste being brought to Yucca Mountain?
I'm open to the idea of exploring it and seeing, but also making sure that Nevada leaders have a voice in that.
Okay, because in the past it's kind of been like a green, a blanket no.
Right, that's right. It's not a blanket no.
There haven't been really any necessarily debates top to bottom. How do you believe that, whether it's through this or other ways, that you can try and convince independents to cross over? That's been a big challenge from the last couple of elections for Republicans in Nevada.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed that my opponent wouldn't accept your offer to debate. You offered me and Dina Titus the opportunity to debate, and we accepted immediately. And she wouldn't do it. You know, she currently has an ad running that ends with her saying, "I won't back down from a tough fight." Well, she's backed down from this tough fight. She won't sit on this stage with me and answer questions. She's saying a lot of things right now that just aren't true. And I don't think she would do that if she and I were sitting here together, say things to me that weren't true when I had a chance to answer.
We have more with Mark Robertson on topics like the student loan forgiveness plan and the Ukraine situation. That is at 8newsnow.com. We also have previous interviews with his opponent in the race, the incumbent congresswoman from the Democrat, Dina Titus. A Northern Nevada man plans to plead guilty to taking part in the January 6th Capitol Hill attack. The Justice Department says that man there, Josiah Kenyon, will be sentenced in mid-December. Court documents say he used a large plastic pylon and what appeared to be a table leg to assault officers during the riot. A separate defendant from Nevada had a plea deal pushed back also this week. Another political news, Democratic Treasurer Zach Conine has filed a complaint with the Secretary of State's office against his Republican opponent, Michelle Fiore. Conine says Fiore and former Las Vegas City Councilman Ricky Barlow formed a business together and didn't disclose it. Barlow, as you may remember, was convicted of stealing campaign funds. Fiore recently touted his endorsement of her. He is a Democrat. A potential 2024 ballot initiative to break up Clark County School District has new support. The Communities and Schools Initiative says it is now endorsed by 6 major chambers of commerce, including the Vegas, Urban, Latin, and Asian chambers. Organizers are in the process of collecting enough signatures to get this effort on the 2024 ballot. The legislature could also just pass it themselves in 2023. Sheriff and Republican gubernatorial candidate Joe Lombardo had some high-profile help on his campaign trail this week. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. The pair held a forum on Lombardo's education plan this week at Liberty Baptist Church. Lombardo wants to repeal a new state law that makes it harder to expel violent students. Lombardo also says if he's elected, he would restore the Read by Third Grade program. Neither gentleman took questions from the media. Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak's team criticized the church where this event was held for its stance on abortion.
He's definitely not for Nevada.
This week in What to Watch, a Congressional District 4 debate. Channel 8 will host a debate between incumbent Democrat Stephen Horsford and Republican Sam Peters. That'll be October 8th at 8 o'clock. It'll be hosted by our own Christian Cazadis and Vanessa Murphy. Hopefully you will be able to join us for that. That'll do it for us here on Politics Now. We thank you so much for watching. Stay up to date on all the political news online at 8newsnow.com. We're back with you every Saturday. Thank you for watching.